Hey, I'm Josh from Vacuums R Us in Colorado, and I'm going to talk to you today about what certified recondition means when you're buying either a machine or you're buying parts from Vacuums R Us and Sewing 2. People ask all the time, what does recondition mean? What's been done to it? And it really depends on the component and it depends on the product. So it's very variable. I'm going to show you a full strip down of a machine and the parts that we take off of it and what level of reconditioning or repurposing we go through. This is a great example. It's a Dyson DC07. Dyson discontinued these years ago, but they sold, I think, actually in the millions of units in the United States. So a lot of people still have these machines. They want to repair them, and all of the parts have been discontinued. So there's a high demand for a lot of these repair components. So one of the first things we do when we're going to be stripping down machines for parts, we put them on the bench, we do a visual inspection to look for potentially damaged parts. Right off the bat, the housing, the lower housing on this, which is a high demand item, it's completely cracked. So that's something we're going to entirely dispose of. But we'll do a visual inspection to see, if there's any areas for concern. And then we'll just start throwing stuff away that's not really usable. This tool is completely worn out, so that's going to go. This tool here definitely has some life in it. This tool here is not a wear item, so we'll set that aside for possible reconditioning. After a visual inspection, we'll plug it in, turn it on. It'll give us a good idea of why it's here, what's wrong with it. And that'll allow us to listen to the motor as well. So when we're looking at reselling motors as certified reconditioned, the first thing we do before visual inspection is we'll turn on and listen to it. You can kind of tell the age of a motor and how worn it is by the pitch in many cases. I mean, you turn it on and it smokes and you realize it's just flat out bad. But the high wind down pitch, and I'm not sure how well that picks up on these mics, but what we're listening for is we're listening to a high pitch as it winds down. And that typically means that the motor bearing is starting to fail. I'm sure the bearing could be replaced, but if the bearing is that far gone, then the motor doesn't have a ton of life left on it, and we don't want to resell it. Somebody might put the work into, installing it in a machine, and then it fails a year later. So the motor on this is going to go to scrap. That one's going to go for recycling. And next thing we'll do, we'll take this off. We'll inspect for any potential cosmetic defects. The canister is generally in pretty good shape. This is a part that's going to end up getting cleaned up and resold. It's a high demand part. They get dropped and broken all the time. So we know that's something somebody's going to want. Next we'll look at the cord. And so we're going to look for any abrasions, any kinks, any damage to the cord. We'll look to see if the wires are getting bound up inside. And in this case, this cord is in pretty good shape. We're also looking for major cosmetic problems. If it's got a little bit of paint scuffs on it from being dragged around the floor, that's okay. But if cosmetically it's in really rough shape, we're going to dispose of it. So we'll pull that cord off to the side. Generally speaking, we're not going to save things like tool hoses if they're still available. There is an aftermarket supply for these tool hoses. So the tool hose we're going to dispose of entirely. They're very difficult to clean because they get gross inside. And aftermarket, these things are like 20 bucks. So we'll zip tie the cord so it doesn't fall all over the place. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up this so I can remove the cord. We're going to save the screws as we go too, because these are actually pretty proprietary screws and people need these. So we'll pull that out. We're going to save the power switch. We happen to know that that is a high demand item as well. And now we have a power cord to set aside as well as a power switch. This valve right here is another high demand item simply because it detaches from the machine, so people lose it sometimes. So is this valve right here too. Discontinued, and everybody needs them. This filter cover right here gets broken commonly when it's getting removed to replace the filter, so we know that's a high demand item. And I actually broke it while taking it off because of how brittle the machine is. So we're going to have to dispose of that. And then we'll flip the machine over. The base plates are also high demand. They're a wear item because they run over the carpet over and over again. This particular base plate on visual inspection, it's just really worn. This does not meet the standard of certified recondition. That one's going to have to go too. Brush rollers, we typically do not recondition unless they're discontinued and there is no aftermarket. There is an aftermarket supply of these brush rollers at this time. So we're going to dispose of this brush roll because they're a wear item. It's already worn, and aftermarket options for replacement exist. So this right here, now in this case, this unit is actually, this is broken already, so we're going to dispose of it. Normally we'd be showing a lot of caution taking this lower housing off because of how fragile they are, but in this case we're not. Again, this hose we're going to dispose of. It's already all bent out of shape and gross, and there are aftermarket options on that. Next, we're going to remove the clutch. So we've got 3 screws down here. So this clutch we're definitely going to save, and we're going to rebuild this clutch. These are a high demand item. They are a wear item that Dyson chose to discontinue many years ago. So we save all these clutches, clean them up, we rebuild them, we replace the wear parts in them, and make them available for sale. So this is the part we had noted was already broken. Okay, so the next piece is this column right here, this main housing back here. Also saving this. That gets lost a lot, so that's a high demand item. These break over time. They get brittle and break. The purple ones in particular are a little bit more rare than the gray ones, so there is a high demand for that. So we're going to save that part as well. The motor shroud on this unit is in good shape, so we're going to keep that. Again, this is a fragile item that tends to get cracked. And then the motor we're actually going to give to the scrappers. They're going to recycle that. All right, so now we have everything stripped out. We have all the parts that we want to keep. The next step is they actually get washed over here in the dish sink. All right, so the next step is we dunk everything in this commercial sized kitchen sink and we hose everything down. We cover it with some deodorizing and cleaning solution to get all of the old debris off. And then we dry it out, put it in inventory, make it ready for sale. All right, now all this stuff will get put up here on the dry racks. It'll dry out. And the final step will be able to get moved into inventory where it will receive a final inspection, get photographed, and put on our website where you can buy it. All right, so now that the parts are back in the inventory and receiving area, our inventory people will check it out. They'll do a final inspection on these to verify that it meets our standards of quality and cleanliness. They'll do a visual inspection on motors to make sure there's nothing obvious going on. They'll take photographs of them, they'll get them listed, they'll be on our website, and then they'll be available for you to purchase.